Let's take it away.
Mpho Dagada. Dagada has a meaning.
Not really. It's a vendor surname. It's Dagada.
Dagada.
Yeah.
Cheers, we're learning. do you announce yourself like that?
Yes, yeah. Mpho Dagada.
Dagada.
Yes.
Yeah, we're learning. And it's always embarrassing for us Nguni speakers because we are so ignorant, specifically about names, surnames from the Limpopo side. I don't know who to blame for that. But it's the same way we normally chastise white people for their inability to pronounce black names. But you find even black people don't know how to pronounce their own black people's names. You don't have a view on that?
Look, I think I think that the different dialects make it a bit more difficult for people to be able to do that. But what you find is that in most of the tribes, most of them are able to pronounce their own names. I think that's okay.
But they can't pronounce other people's names, like yours. You'd get to a Zulu guy, Mpho Dagada, and you're like, that's not really my surname though.
Yeah,
it's not offensive to you.
No, not really. I'm more of the outlook type of guy. I don't dwell on like the small stuff. I'm more about the big picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Mpho, thank you so much for coming through to the Penuel show, bro.
Definitely.
I really appreciate it. I think this is a few months older than it was supposed to be. I met with yourself and Usandile Khwezi at a stunning hotel, and we had an amazing conversation. And I owed you back then a sit down. And what's been pretty dope is since then, a lot of your content has been trending on social media. And I'm just honored that you're here. So thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's a list of political parties I've written down here. And I think this is where we're going to start. Bosa, Bold One South Africa, Musi Maimane, new political party. Shiluba by Bongani Baloyi, who used to be with the DA. Another one, it's spelled Xiluva from a Nguni perspective, but it's pronounced Shiluba, which he explained means flowers, Izimbali. Gayton Mackenzie's Patriotic Alliance is going to be a new player nationally. Herman Mashaba's Action SA is going to be a new player. He comes from the DA. You've got the African Congress for Transformation, the ACT, of the suspended, expelled Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Magashule. One of the parties that is not as popular as it probably should be, Neil de Beer's UIM, the United Independent Movement. And then I'd like to think Operation Tudula. I'm not sure if they've eventually registered or not, but they said they want to contest. Nhlanhla Lax's Soweto Parliament said they're contesting. And then lastly, I'm going to raise, because these ones sound similar, and I hope they don't confuse people. You've got Tusongezo Zibi's Rise Mzansi. Then you've got Mpho's Arise SA, which is yours. Rise, Arise, Mzansi SA. You're not worried about the confusion, number one. And how do you feel about us having so many political parties now?
So I think the first thing is that we registered first as a political party. And before we registered, we contacted Rise Mzansi to say, are you guys a political party? The national chair, Vuyiswa. And she was informing us that they're actually a movement.
Yeah.
They're not a political party. We only found out later when the IEC was saying, oh, there's somebody who's registered or who wants to register who has a similar name as you. We did object it. The IEC felt that they are, so they're going to be right close to the bottom of the list. We are A, so we'd be at the top. So the
They're looking
IEC,
at it from an optics perspective.
they looked at it from the way they look at it, yeah. And they basically said that's okay. But I think that the most important thing for me, or the thing that I think really stands out, is what are these political parties trying to achieve? And I think that's the most important thing, because we were in KZN with Sandile. We were launching Arise South Africa in KwaZulu-Natal. And the state of KZN is such a dangerous state because politics is basically the mafia business. You look at the numbers of killings in KZN, they're staggering.
The political killings are crazy, boy.
Very serious. And you look at, I'll give an example. There was a pastor who's part of a political party, the ACDP.
Yeah.
And he basically got killed in his home while
ACDP?
leading. Yeah.
The ACDP?
Rev Mushwe. It's a Christian political party.
Kenneth Mshwe?
Yes.
They're a Christian party. They're an old party. I think they the sixth or seventh biggest party in the country from the last elections.
Yes.
You're saying there's political killings even there?
No, so what happened was there was a councillor there.
Okay.
And this specific councillor had stood up to ask questions about certain funds in the municipality. Basically, what he was saying was, why were these people paid when the job is not being done? And what happened was they came through Sunday. He was preaching. The church is at his home. And literally they shot him in front of the whole family, in front of everybody. Now, what happens immediately is after they did that, they then came to Johannesburg because we had a prayer session that we attended with Rev Moshe in his church to pray for South Africa. And we were informed that the same guys came through and they were trying to come for him, right? And really what it was about asking the question to say, why were funds paid from a municipality account when a service was not delivered? And what we're beginning to see is people walk into municipalities and say, who is the chief financial officer of this municipality? Who's the municipality manager? They go to that person and they tell that person, you will give us whatever you want worth 40 million rand. Do it before the end of the week or else you die. And immediately that person then goes to the councillors and says, councillors, I'm being threatened. The councillor says, we've already been bought. We also don't want to die. Do it. And we're seeing funds leave municipality accounts not being accounted for. Now, when you look at all our municipalities, all of them fail audits. Every single year, it's a failed audit. That failed audit does not necessarily mean that they bought maybe a cool drink or a packet of chips. People think that's what it means. No. It means that there were millions that left the municipality that no one accounted for because of these guys with the Nkabis and that kill. It even went to an extent where you do investigations. It's become so ridiculous that there's a side of the hostel in Gieblands where you know this side specializes in killing politicians. They know where politicians live. They study politicians. Immediately when you get there, there's a person who will say to you, oh, you can't kill that guy. That guy is one of our guys. You can kill this guy. And the state that is creating is where young people are saying, what then is going on? How do we get involved in politics? One of the biggest hurdles we've had to challenge is getting women to take up leadership positions in the political party. Because many of the women say, we don't want to die. And immediately you say, but you've got the expertise, you've got the degrees, you're learned, we need you to serve. And they say, that's not serving, that's killing yourself. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a new environment to say, South Africans, if we don't wake up, 10, 20 years from now, we're literally going to have an environment where politicians are the most dangerous people in the whole world. You look at KZN and you walk up to a politician, they've got 4 gunmen. Now the word politician actually means a servant.
Sure.
It's somebody who uses the resources of state to serve or to meet the need of the people, a solution bearer. How is a young person going to go up to a councillor who has 4 gunmen around them holding AK-47s? This is something you see in KZN every day. It's not a special thing, 24/7. How's that person going to go and tell that councillor to say, my district or my municipality or the street that I live in hasn't had electricity or water or lights for so long, when the person comes through with their gunmen? We're even seeing reports that specific ward councillors no longer live in those wards. They literally just go the time of election. They bribe young people to tell them, go ahead, get your friends to vote for me. And immediately, the moment they win, they're out of there and they move. And these political killings became so bad that the minister, Begitgele, had to arrange a special task force. Now, when you arrange a special task force in government, what that means is that the situation has reached a level of national crisis, that the national police force must sit down with state security and understand what's going on. He recently gave a report on the national task team that he set up. The report was basically nothing. The man is basically telling us that there are political killings, people are being murdered, people are being abducted, people are being threatened to give away tenders. Municipalities are losing money on a daily basis. And his response to Parliament is, we're doing the best we can. A few people have been convicted, but that's it. And the issue with just convicting somebody who's been paid off to actually kill a politician, the issue with doing that is the fact that the people who actually kill these politicians never get caught. Because they'll always investigate and find some old Nkabi who's about to retire, who they no longer care about, put him in jail, say he's the one who shot the guy. But the masterminds that continue to dilapidate these municipalities, they never get caught. And what I'm saying is that we need a police force that is able to understand what's actually going on. Because if you're killing somebody who got paid 10,000 rand for them to go and kill a politician and shoot a politician, and you're arresting that person, you might just be doing them a favor. Because in jail, the government is spending about close to 400 rand a day on that person. You might be doing them a favor. You might be putting them out of their misery. But the actual syndicate, those are the guys that actually say they call themselves business forums, they call themselves whatever, and they're actually the ones doing this. And
they call themselves business forums.
Some of them do, yeah. And we must remember, Thabo Mbeki spoke about this.
He did.
He said, in Newcastle, when we went there,
That's my hometown, boy. I remember that because
yeah,
Newcastle's had bad political killings. Please continue. My apologies.
Thabo Mbeki said, we found that Nkabis were paid by the municipality on a monthly basis.
They were on the payroll.
They were on the payroll. Now, when people hear this, my issue with South Africans is, South Africans are very good people. We've got an 85% Christian nation. South Africans want to believe the good in people. South Africans want to believe that people are very good people. It's inherent. But what they don't actually realize is by us continually believing the lies, we're perpetuating this behavior. If a former president informs you that municipalities have gunmen or hitmen on their payroll, go and check. Because we checked. And when we checked, we found out that it wasn't just that only. They were criminals who demanded to be paid salaries. They are government vacancies that are filled. The guy never comes to work. The guy never goes to the municipality, but every month he's paid. There's somebody who goes in. He's one of these guys who go in and tick whatever form they need to tick. The whole council knows that there are these people that are untouchable, that salaries leave every month, pensions leave and go to these people. Literally. Some of these people do weird and dubious things to continue looting the state. And where we stood from, because a lot of people forget that I was in the government. I was advising the sitting president on the fourth industrial revolution. I wasn't some boy on the outside. No, I used to sit next to Cyril and advise and say, this must not work. This must work. I used to call ministers on speed dial. I didn't do this because someday I was bored or I didn't get a tender or whatever. I had these people in the palm of my hands. I did this because I got to realize that the truth is more important to fight for. And in this country, no one is fighting for the truth. Everybody's sitting around and playing around. And when I looked at my age and my age mates, I looked at myself and I saw myself, I'm advising government, I'm doing well in businesses. When I went out to look at the youth, it's pandemonium. Young people have nothing. And when I say nothing, it's bad to the point where they have nothing at all. And when I looked at it, I realized that it becomes important that I leave this place and I let them know. To say, ministers, I'm not going to continue advising if my advice is falling on deaf ears. President, I'm not going to continue doing this, holding on to a title, being known as a commissioner. You walk into a room and everybody says, wow, this is the president's advisor, give him a seat. And you look at everybody and you realize that nothing is actually happening. So it was time for me to say, I can't afford to continue living a lie. I must break away and stand for the truth. And if it means I'm risking my life, because there's two things that I'm aware will happen to me. One, I'm aware that they might kill me. I'm very aware of that. I've already become conscious of that because I was inside. I know everything from inside. Number two, I am aware that they might try and put me in jail in whatever way they want to. So those two things are things that I've already reconciled with to say there has to be a young person who's willing to risk it all, to remind every young person out there to say we're not safe. Where we're headed for is worse than crisis. And it's important that we stand up and we unite as young people and we go for this thing. Because when we begin to go for it, we'll begin to realize that it's not as difficult as they've made it seem. It's not what they've actually made it seem. What it is young people that are willing to tell it as it is. To face the truth and say, whether these Nkabis want to come kill me from these municipalities, no. I won't sit down and watch a whole nation come to its knees because of a couple of people that depend on the fact that they can kill people. Let them come. But let the young people know what they're dealing with, because young people believe, there are many young people that believe that the government is doing its best. You sit with a young person and you say, where are the issues in this country? They'll tell you, it's not the government. The government is not our problem. The problem is the business. The problem is, and you listen to these young people.
Monopoly capital.
You listen
the problem in apartheid.
Exactly. You listen to these young people and you say, hey, hold on. Some of us have been to this government you're talking about. We were advising presidents. We sat down and we looked through all the departments. And not only myself, by the way, I did this with Chirizi Marwala, who was the Vice Chancellor of UJ, who is now the Vice Chancellor of the UN University, with the CEO of MTN, the CEO of Vodacom, board members of Microsoft, engineers. We literally sat in rooms where we all got frustrated at the fact that this government is not doing things correctly. And that's what we stand for, to say the first thing I need to do in order to get young people to vote, my first mandate is to tell them the truth. And not to tell them the truth because I'm some 40-year-old man. No, to tell them the truth as their peer. To say, guys, I've been there. I see what's going on. I see what these people are doing. And I chose not to live in that comfort. I always tell people to say, if I wanted to be in the youth league, I could have been the youth league president. I was in. I wasn't some outside person. When Cyril was campaigning, I was one of the people that was speaking up for him. When it comes to the 4IR, I was one of the forefront leaders of that strategy. So I wasn't coming from a perspective of, things. No, I'm coming from a perspective of we must start to tell each other the truth. And what is that truth? The truth is the government is screwing up young people. And we must face the truth. There's a Bible verse that says the truth will set you free. Jesus was right. The reason why young people are not free in this country, the reason why many of them continue to believe a lie, is because they don't know the truth. And where we start by telling it as it is. To say there are some truths that we must deal with. We must look at them and say, if politics is going to be a game where people walk around with gunmen, we're going the wrong direction. Politicians will be the most inaccessible people in the world. We'll have people suffering at the bottom, and they won't even hear the complaints of those suffering, because those that work for these ministers will change the newspapers and print a new newspaper and say, Minister, the newspaper is telling everybody saying they love you, just so they can continue doing what they're doing. Because young people are not believing it for what it is. And I say this because I've looked at the numbers. Now, I come from both sides of the spectrum. I went to a government school. I also went to private school. I know the difference. I went to a very high-end private school. I went to a normal government school. I've been able to see both sides of the spectrum. And
can you give a shout out to your schools, if you don't mind?
So I went to Stanford Lake College in Limpopo, and I also went to Hoërskool Littregat in Makhado in Littregat.
Sure.
So I went to both sides of the spectrum. And really what I got to see there was very interesting. And it's this layer of South African education does not speak about government. If you go to any textbook, when it talks about the South African education system, they've fundamentally made it a point to say, don't tell them about government.
Don't explain the workings?
Don't explain the resources and the funds that government has. I always say to people that government is the biggest spender in this country and has always been. If we're talking about money, it's in the government. If we're talking about how we're going to create our wealth, it sits with the government. But many people would like to think that it's different. Sure. And maybe let's get to more understanding of this. You look at load shedding. We're all suffering load shedding. Everybody every day is saying load shedding. The city of Tshwane, which was run by the ANC and is now run by the DA, has had 2 power stations that could have helped alleviate load shedding in Gauteng. These power stations were not being used. The government was spending 300 million every single year just to make sure that people clog in and clog out, just to protect the power stations. These are coal power stations that work, that function perfectly. They were not being used. You go to anybody in the municipality and you ask them, for 12 years we've been suffering load shedding. Why has no one ever thought, let's actually switch on these power stations?
Do you know the names of the power stations?
Yes, I'll get you the names, but they basically in Tshwane, Rooival.
Okay.
And these power stations, by the way, the new mayor of Tshwane, it's a DA guy, he's now come out to say, hey, my friends want to lease these power stations for 40 years. They want to sell electricity to Tshwane. Now, he's young. He's like me. He's smart. And what he's quickly realized is that there's an issue that the municipalities were not able to handle, not because it's a complex matter, because the thinking capacity of the people that we've got in these municipalities, if you show them a power station, the first thing they'll say to you is, what do you mean I must draft something to lease out a power station? Who do you even talk to? You go to an engineering student from Wits University and you say, hey, dude, there's a power station. What do we do? The first thing they'll say to you is, give me the drawings. Let's see what's going on. How's it been used before? Where was it supplying power before? Everything exists already. Let's fire it up. Bring the coal. Let's go. But yet you have people who were in the municipality, who were suffering load shedding themselves, who for years did nothing about it. And really what we begin to see in government is that there is no fit for purpose people in our municipalities and our governments. Oh, and this one I know personally. I've sat down with these ministers to say, hey, I'm a commissioner of the Fourth Industrial Revolution in the office of the president. I want to change this, that, and the other because the commission has decided that this should be implemented. Oh, I've sat down with them. And immediately they'll let you know to say, hey, I was in the struggle. That's why we have you young ones. And immediately after they say that, they patronize you by saying things will change one day. And you ask yourself this question to say, what is going on? What allowed us to get to this level? What allowed things to get this far? And when you look at the decisions, they affect us so badly. Because in the future, our future, young people's future is being stolen today. Let's discuss this load shedding issue because a lot of people are now focused on the wrong thing. Jacob Zuma says to us in 2009, and I said to somebody that, growing up is realizing that there was a part of the former president Jacob Zuma that truly loved South Africa. There was a part of the man that loved South Africa. Although we might not agree on certain things, we might have issues on certain things where he let things slide, but there was a part of the man that loved South Africa. When Jacob Zuma said, let's build nuclear, he was on the ball, he was on the mark. Because what we need in South Africa is nuclear. And the worst part about it is no one is talking about it. And let me maybe open it up so everybody understands it. If you want to own electricity, you are in a monopoly of note. No one can compete with you. No one can question your prices. Contracts get signed for many years to come. And what these people have done, and I've gotten to the point where I say, if we don't tell young people the truth, we're failing ourselves. What they've done is they've asked themselves the question to say, how can we own electricity in South Africa? They realize that they don't have enough capital to do so. So they go to America, they go to Europe, and they join what I call the climate cult. And I'll explain why this climate change situation is very occultic. Because climate change only works when it comes to Africa. Only Africa should switch off its power stations. Africa, you're going to kill the rest of the world with your coal. Oh, but America and Europe, please, we've got strong winters. We need switch on the coal. We can't let people die. We can't let
Asia as well.
Asia as well, yeah. We can't let our manufacturing stop. Our GDP is dropping. Please switch on the coal. But Africa, focus on solar. You have the sun. Africa, focus on wind. You have good climate. I mean, go to the bush and build a wind power station. And the danger of this is these men have believed it because the thinking capacity is not there. They go into meetings where world leaders say to them, we'll give you 160 billion, a loan of which they took to build.
That's rands.
Yes, that's rands.
The
$8.5 billion dollars. Yeah, that in rands about 160.
Okay.
Which you can use to build independent power stations. You own the power stations. So we'll give your government a loan. Then you set up little companies and get that money from your government and you build independent power stations. And these guys say, but our people will never allow it. The unions will never allow it. They'll never allow individuals to own electricity. And immediately they say, oh, no problem. Frustrate them. Get them to the point where they will allow them. Where there's a will, there's a way. And the guys say, okay, how do we frustrate them? And they say, let the ANC start looting Eskom. And a company is set up known as Chancellor House. Chancellor House gets every tender there is to get to build power stations. They go to China, they find Hitachi, they say, Hitachi, come through, let's share a share spreading deal, let's work together, let's build power stations. Now, fundamentally, how are we allowing people that have no experience in electricity, politicians, to build power stations? Fundamentally, let's start there. But let's leave that conversation because when I said this to them and when I asked them this, they said to us, so how do you expect us to finance the revolution? And I said, okay, let's leave that conversation. Because if they're saying that they must own entities that loot from the state to finance their revolution and bus people down to F&B Stadium and wherever they need to bus them down and create this euphoria that all the grandmothers are supporting us, everybody's supporting us because they've got funds that they've looted from Eskom, that the same electricity that people don't have, if they want to have electricity, they must just go and look. If that's the narrative that they want to push, then let these people become serious about service delivery. The issues we have today at Eskom can all be backdated to a tender that went out to Chancellor House. 38.5 billion that went out to Chancellor House. And people...
That's rands.
Yeah, that's rands.
Okay.
People ask me and say, Mpho, how do you know these numbers off by head? And I said to them, I spent 5 years advising government. There's no government paperwork that I've not read. There's no government department that I've not fully understood. There's no structure of government that I don't know in and out. Immediately, how they did this, how they gave themselves the tender, the chairperson of fundraising in the ANC, they deployed that person as the chairperson of Eskom. He became the board chairperson of Eskom. Immediately after doing that, the ANC receives a tender of 38.5 billion. Now, the public protector of the country at that time came out and said this tender was awarded irregularly. The ANC looked at it and said, we're ruling. At that time, they had the majority in parliament. They said, nice to know. Let's continue.
We can even put it to a vote.
If you want.
If you want.
Yeah. And immediately what begins to happen is everything wrong starts to happen at our power stations. When I was reading the documents of what went wrong in those power stations, because we got documents from the CEOs to understand everything, the story's ridiculous. Welding needs to happen. Somebody goes and buys the wrong welding equipment or the wrong welding bolts. They bring them through. Eskom says, oh, you bought the wrong bolts. Person says, sorry, I can't get a refund. Don't care. Let's weld. Eskom says, you're welding incorrectly. Sorry, I need to get paid. Let's weld. Eskom says, this is the wrong thing you're doing. Sorry, need to get paid. Let's weld. There are politicians in the ANC that have told us that they are waiting for us to drop money bags. Weld. And immediately when things come through, they say, but this thing has been built incorrectly. They said, go ask the politician in the ANC. They go to the politicians. Guys, they're building incorrectly at the power stations. Can you force these people to fix them? No, we can't. We use the money to fill up a stadium. Anybody who wants to question the welding there must come question the ANC because we won that election because of the stadiums we used. Sorry, we used the money to buy t-shirts. Anybody who's feeling cold must come and ask us. Any minister who questions the ANC will get released because the money we used to actually win these people over came from Eskom. So write it off. And after many years, Eskom says, let's take these people to court. Eskom takes the ANC to court, Chancellor House to court. And when they get to court, it's stringed along for many years. Eskom is paying lawyers, ridiculous amounts. Again, the state is being looted. The ANC can play the long game. I mean, they got 38.5 billion. They've been paid. Doesn't matter if there's no electricity. They haven't delivered the service. Doesn't matter. They continue doing the same thing up until the case had to get to the Supreme Court in Bloem. And when the ANC saw that things were getting hot from that specific court case, the ANC says, you know what, we'll pay. Fine us 600 million. We'll pay just to say we delayed everything. We didn't use the right thing. We're sorry. Sorry, guys. Here's 600 million. What about the 38.5 billion that they took? Today, we still have non-functioning power stations. The ANC was paid the 38.5 billion. They use it to go and tell our grandmothers that they are doing well as a government. They use that same money to buy young people t-shirts, to go out there and fill up buses and fill up stadiums. I always say to people to say, if when it comes to numbers, you can't beat the ANC out of it. We as a Rise will never try and form buses and try and say we're going to fill up stadiums like the ANC. No, our strategy is to say, let the truth set people free. We hope that the truth will reveal. And it's my biggest hope that everything I'm saying, people go out there and Google. Just go and Google. Go and have a look at these things. Go and ask your comrades to say, there's this young man who's saying that the reason we have load shedding is because funds were used to sponsor the party to get votes. And this is what happened. Go and ask those things. Immediately once you ask those things, you'll see the trail. It's right there. It's clear as day. So if we're to actually win, we must be bold about telling the truth. And Penuel, I had to sit down with myself. I'm Christian. So one of my beliefs is that there is a God and God does speak to people. When it comes to arise, I believe God spoke to me. Because I was in a situation where I was already inside of comfort. I didn't need to come out. Lived in the highest floor or penthouse in Sandton, had done extremely well. I was living the life. And God spoke to me and said, it needs that South Africans must arise. The name arise comes from Isaiah chapter 60. It says, arise, shine, for your light has come. It says that gross darkness has covered the earth and the people. But it says you must arise. Now, when you look at South Africans, young people, a lot of them have been fooled. A lot of them. I've often watched a young person get up in the morning, go to a rally, listen to the speech that the politician is giving without ever Googling any facts, believing it and living their life based on a lie. There are young people that have said to me, 350 grants come from the ANC. And they believe it. When you inform them that these grants come from National Treasury, a government, it's not the ANC, it's a government that's doing it. They've been told at a rally that these 350s, they come from the ANC. The Buffalo is very rich. He's giving everybody 350. And it's up to us to begin to say, let's begin to tell the truth. And the truth might not be nice. The truth, I had somebody saying to me the other day, they said, but why is it that you don't talk about your own policies? Why don't you guys talk about what you're going to do? Why do you keep attacking? I said, hold on. They will not listen to our policies because they are already believing a lie. You can't build on someone who's already believing a lie. We must start by exposing the truth. Once the truth is clear, then we say, how do we build? Now, back to the nuclear, because I think that's where we were at, to fix load shedding. Nuclear energy is a low carbon emission. So if we were talking green, as the Europeans and all these people are saying green energy, climate change, climate police, if they really wanted to help us, they would have given us money for nuclear. Europe is building the biggest nuclear power station. China, nuclear power station. India, nuclear power station. Russia, nuclear. BRICS, nuclear power station. Tina, solar panels. Windmills. Okay, if I'm in school...
Sorry, wind turbines.
Wind turbines, yeah.
Before people attack you.
But if I'm in school, Penuel, and everybody in the school is buying a Ferrari, and me now I'm buying a bicycle. I'm saying I'm in the race. Everybody's saying, hey, Baba, we'll give you a loan to buy a bicycle. But
it's green and it's low
emission.
It's
green, it's low emission. You aren't harming the earth. How? But you guys are buying Ferraris. The biggest insult, and people need to understand this, the reason why South Africa was put into BRICS is because they need South Africa. We have uranium. Uranium powers fuel, so nuclear. It's the fuel for nuclear, right? We're in the top 10 of the largest producers of uranium in the world. Our uranium deposits, I believe, we're definitely number one, but scientists are saying, hey, top 10, other countries also have it, and many of them, they lie about minerals because they're trying to get Africa to lessen the price. People don't know this. When you read state security documents, there are countries that have lied about minerals just so Africa can become a bit calm. Because if we knew that we're the only ones who have it, we'll be stronger. But we'll get to that. If we've got the fuel for nuclear and we continue shipping it to other countries, why aren't we building our own nuclear power stations? Is it because we don't have enough funds? Okay, why are you giving us 160 billion to build windmills instead of nuclear? Why was Jacob Zuma shut down when he spoke about nuclear? And many others agreed. CSIR agreed. And they said nuclear is the way. Why is it that everybody who's now close or friends with the one who's ruling, is now building an independent power station. And remember, South Africans won't question this because we're under pressure. We're under pressure. Load shedding has taken away jobs. Load shedding has frustrated. There is no South African that is not at breaking point. So if anybody tells you we are building solar to try and help, you listen. In fact, you'll be grateful. But the truth is that was never the right choice. It was a choice that was carved for us to make sure that we never become the giant that we need to become. Because when you ask Arise and say, Mpho, what are the policies? I immediately tell you, fourth industrial revolution. We're building manufacturing hubs. We're building medical devices. We're building moving cars. I immediately go to manufacturing. And immediately they'll say, let's tame him. Yes, it's possible through 3D printing. Yes, your blockchain can work. Everything you said is right. Where will you get the electricity? Because where there's no nuclear, these things become very difficult to do. Nuclear is the bedrock of the fourth industrial revolution. They saw it coming to say, there's a generation of young people that are into tech that understand how things work. These young people might give us issues in the future. Kill them quick and use electricity to do so. Because not that I have issues with all these things. The issue for me, the biggest issue is in the future, yes, solar panels and everything will give us electricity for what, 5 years? Yeah, we'll come out of load shedding for 5 years. But after that 5 years, we are back to square one, even worse. What could have given us enough energy to build a strong nation? Where everywhere around the world, they say, if you want to build something, in Africa, they have electricity, they have the minerals. Literally, it's in the ground. Whatever you want to build, just go and dig, it's there in the ground. So that becomes one of the biggest frustrations that I've ever seen in our country. And the reason why I said to you that two things would happen to me. One, they'd kill me, or they'd put me to jail. Because when you look at what the Zondo Commission said, and I don't want to get too much into it, we spent 1 billion researching or understanding or uncovering how corruption happened in our country. Essentially, we spent 1 billion rand to find out how 1.5 trillion over 5 years was looted through corruption in our country. Now, the Zondo Commission came out with 8 million pages. I believe I've read more than anybody in this country on the Zondo Commission. I know that many people who talk about it, they haven't even read. There are things in the Zondo Commission, by the way, that when you read, you're like, this is a movie. A woman is brought in from China. She comes, she takes money from the Reserve Bank. She flies out. She's caught in between. There are things that you read and you're like, is this the same South Africa that I'm living in? There are documents there about how politicians funded the Chinese railway using money they stole from Africa in the Zondo Commission. And I said to somebody, I said, the biggest issue we've got is you create an 8 million page document. Now, I'm an author, a best-selling author. So for me, reading, I must read. Every week
let them know. Best-selling author.
Every week I have to read, right? And I've got publishing houses saying, when you're releasing your next book? Because I've understood that reading for me is a precious skill that you must do. And I think for South Africans, reading is supposed to be a very big thing. Because if you come from a, I always tell people that while growing up, I used to read the Bible cover to cover. You ask me about the Bible, it's in my mind. The Bible is not the most funnest thing to read.
I've read it as well. When you were speaking about the Zondo Commission, I was thinking, when I read it, I was also like, have Christians actually read this thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's not the funnest thing to read. But when you begin, and I haven't just read, I've had to read it to the point of meditating and understanding it completely. So when you understand that culture of reading, a nation can be helped. But we'll get there. I don't want to digress from the Zondo Commission. Now, the issue is 8 million pages. Which young person is going to read it if the literacy rate in our country has been going down? So do you see that there's a strategic evil attack upon our nation to say, dumb them down, that even if Zondo is saying certain things in the commission, none of them will listen. You go to a young person and you say, what happened in the Zondo Commission? They'll tell you Gupta. That's the least of it. That's the least of it. This was worse. There were things there that were worse. And I want to talk about some of them. But before I talk about that, what the Zondo Commission said, the solution that they brought with, and which I agree, they said South Africa must pay whistleblowers. You see what I'm doing now? Coming in, I'm speaking to young people. I'm telling them what happened. I'm revealing secrets. There are people that would kill me, right? Maybe it might be a bit difficult to kill me because young people have now noticed me. Young people are now following me. People know me. I've got people that are saying, we're backing you, we're with you. I've got people that are saying, listen, we're praying for this thing. God has spoken to us too about our eyes. We're backing you, we're with you. So I've got a force behind me. But think about a young lady who's a receptionist at the Department of Health in Gauteng. Or let's make it a practical example. There was a lady known as Babita, who was a financial officer in Gauteng, Department of Health. She came out and she spoke and she revealed a couple of billion that were actually stolen or looted in Tembisa Hospital. And what happened to her is when she was coming back home, gunmen came, she was opening up a gate, shot 6 bullets, gone. Her family today is still traumatized. The whole Department of Health is saying, we cannot touch that case because the last person who spoke was killed. And what the Zondo Commission said, they said, for us to fix the rot in our government, we must protect whistleblowers. Number 1, pay them. Now, what are some of the countries that protect their whistleblowers? The US, the UK, Canada. If you go to Canada and you go to the US and you say, SEC, there's a crime here, the SEC protects you and they even pay you. Heck, they'll even put you in private security or government security where the FBI or whoever will look after you and protect you. In South Africa, you speak about corruption, you are killed. Abo Babita lost their lives. Their children know that mommy was killed because she spoke for the right thing. The same thing with our councillors. And what Zondo Commission said, they said, for us to fix this, South Africa, pay the people that expose corruption. A lot of people fight me on this. They say, but if you pay people, won't you be encouraging people to just report everything? I said, that's good. We need a state where everything must be reported, Baba. Whatever you do, if I see you having a meeting with somebody and I think it's corruption, I must take a picture and submit it. Who knows?
We're encouraging snitching.
Yeah, everybody must snitch. And Pen, what's shocking is that if you go into these government departments and you talk to the people that work there, they'll let you know, we see and we know everything.
Oh, these are facts. I can confirm that as well.
They'll tell you, we see and we know everything. But they'll also let you know, if I expose this government, all just because I want to be somebody who people will say is a hero for one day, what will my kids eat? So,
fair concern.
One of the solutions that Arise South Africa will bring into our government is we need to bring in an SEC. Securities Exchange Control in America, the SEC that protects everybody. We need to bring in a financial, we see the hawks, we see the police, great. But the police and the hawks do not track money. They don't know how money moves. We need a financial intelligence that can arrest people, that can stop funds and control those things. A financial intelligence that if I had to say to them, Penuel received a tender, he did not deliver, he's actually going on immediately. Do you know the procedure of getting somebody's bank details in South Africa? It's the most difficult thing in the world. Just to get bank details, just to trace money in this country, I can't even inform you the hurdles you have to move or the mountains you have to jump to get money in this country. We need an institution that people can fear, not because they can be arrested, because South Africans do not fear being arrested. They must fear it because they understand that this institution can take away any bit of money that you make through corruption, to the point where somebody will say, the institution must be so empowered that even if we find you are corrupt on one deal, we will penalize you on all the other deals you've ever done. And for the rest of your life, you'll be on a blockchain database which can never be erased to say, you are a looter of the state. You kill the future of the youth.
But that sounds unfair though.
Not quite. And
you're punishing me for one crime and you're punishing all the other good things that I've done.
So let me maybe...
No, I hear what you're saying, but I'm just saying I think it's unfair.
It sounds, yeah. But I want to bring it to context, right? Because in South Africa, people think it's like that, but it's not. If you look at the richest people that continue to abuse BEE, it's the same families. So if we're to deal with this thing, it's not that Jabu one day submits a tender and immediately Jabu is lucky and he says, hey, now I got a tender, I got lucky. No, he's not getting lucky. It's the same family that does the same thing. To say, okay, We've captured this one, let's move, let's capture the next one. We've captured this one, let's move, let's capture the next department. We've captured this one, let's move, let's capture. There's a minister in this country who lives with her children. And what they do in the evening is they just discuss which tenders are we going for.
You said her children.
Which tenders are you going
Female
for?
minister.
Let's not get into too many details.
No, I was just confirming the her. I'm not going to ask for names.
Both husband and
you must sink yourself, Baba. I'm not here for that.
So yeah, no, that family for me, yeah. But
no, maybe it's just you know about them. I can only imagine most of the other ministers are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really what we're saying is we need to empower the state to say when it comes to looting funds of the future of the country, these things must be dealt with. And you know, I was so fortunate that early on in life, I became very successful and my eyes were opened very early. I always say to people that I was fortunate enough to become a millionaire, still in school, by the way, in the University of Johannesburg, and touched massive amounts of money.
You were at UJ?
Yeah, I was at UJ.
Studying what?
So I started off with law, left law, went to corporate communications, and then essentially left and went to the US to study there.
Okay.
But what I discovered is because I was able to be exposed to money at a very young age, what I quickly realized, I quickly understood what the beast of money is. Because what I did is I left Johannesburg and I said, oh, well, I've made it, let me go, I'm going to the US. And I went to New York City. And when I got to New York City, I said, hey, Wall Street, I'm here. I said, who are you? I said, listen, when it comes to Africa, I'm the king. When it comes to blockchain, this is what I've done. This is what I'm doing. This is what, and they were all very impressed. And immediately afterwards, I said, listen, I'm here. I want to build. Let's do something. And it was the subtle innuendos that reminded me to say we must fix Africa. I remember going to a gym where Angelina Jolie was there. The big celebrities in the US were there. And I was very excited to be at the gym, met some of my favorite authors. It was just the best of the biggest and the best in New York were all there. Got to the change rooms. And the one guy, apparently he's a movie star, I didn't know who he was. He turns around with a towel and he says, hey, dude, I need a new towel. And I look at him and I'm like, I don't work here. And I say it like low because, I mean, I can't believe that this guy who's this in South Africa, who walks into a room and people are like, hey, Baba, this guy's achieved history, gets to America and somebody says, and I said to the guy, I don't work here. And he's like, I said I need a new towel. And I said, I don't work here. And he said, oh, okay. And it's those subtle reminders that will remind each and every one of us to say, around the world, as a black person, you have not built anything.
Still nigger.
And when you get there,
story of OJ.
When you get there, they will not give you the honor that you deserve. It doesn't, and we've sat down with them. I've sat down with people that have left the country. They'll tell you to say, hey, it's just that we want to build our wealth and come back. We have to fight for our country. We need a place where we have actually done something and built something. A place where we can be proud. I mean, what's the use of all the young people, and young people are leaving this country in numbers, of all of us leaving only to get to those other countries and be treated as filth? The amount of times people said to me in New York to say, we heard the guy from Africa, he had very good points, but question, why doesn't he fix Africa first? And the whole room laughs because that's what they're thinking. And for me, it got to the point where I realized to say it becomes important that the smart ones get involved. The smart ones get involved. Because when I said I'm getting into politics, by the way, do you know what people said to me? They were like, dude, you're too smart for it. I said, what do you mean? They said, can you even get a crowd to sing behind you? They said, you need to be able to be speaking like this so that they can all relate to you.
All day, Chief. You must know.
I said, what? And immediately when I got in, they all started to say, okay, we hear him, but the issue is the things he's saying, why has nobody else ever said them? That became the new conversation that people are saying to say, we hear this guy. We hear what he's saying. But the stuff he's saying, why? All these ministers that we've had for years, are you telling me that all of them are afraid? All of them are magwala? Why isn't anybody ever saying these things? Why aren't they being spoken about? And the crux of the matter is we need to first fix that element. The Zondo Commission was right. We need to protect whistleblowers. We need to protect people that tell the truth in this country. We need to make sure that they are protected from all forms of evil, because if they are not, we'll have a state where everybody goes into politics to sing.
Can we take it back? Thank you so much. Where's home for you? You speak about Hoërskool Louis Trichardt, and the other school was?
Stanford Lake College.
Stanford Lake College. Both of them were in Limpopo.
Both of them were in Limpopo, yeah.
So where's home for you, Louis?
So home is Venda, Machabawe, Njerere.
Machabawe.
Yeah.
Wait, that's the second one?
So Njerere, it's an area, yeah.
Okay.
So grew up there. Granddad was an interesting man. He had 7 wives.
Boss. Such a boss.
And he created so many success stories because he believed so much in education. I mean, out of his children, he had about 60 children.
60?
Yeah.
What a boss.
And out of those...
He's passed on?
He's passed on, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's a guy I would have liked to meet. Not you. Tell me pop things here about the future. 60 kids, 7 wives.
Yeah,
what a fucking
wives.
boss. Shout out to your grandfather.
And what he did was quite interesting is he basically started businesses. So what he did is he opened up his first shop and he got his wife to run the shop. And he moved to the next village and wanted to open up his second shop, sort of like a franchise. And this was back, obviously, in the 90s where, you know, black people were not allowed to own shops in cities. So he was doing this in villages. And as a result, when he realized to say, what if this person steals from me? What am I building wealth for here? Let me marry someone and let me teach her how to run the shop. So the first wife was running the first shop, the second wife, the second shop in a different village, the third wife, so in all these villages, he then actually started off these shops.
That's brilliant.
And what he did, he was genius. What he did is he started a banking system where he allowed people to buy on credit. And he did it through a black book. So he got a black book. He basically talked to the suppliers. He had to speak to the Indians at that time because in apartheid, obviously as black people, they were not allowed to do that. So he spoke to the Indians to say, I'm going to come and order from you, but my people don't always have the money to pay. I'll start a credit system with them, and I can't get credit obviously from the government, but we'll start a credit system with you, and basically started a credit system. And in Venda, once you say Dagada, people say Womaliwa, which means that's like the man where you buy your food from, you know, the man where you get, and people would be able to do that, credit systems. And he took so many children to school. I mean, out of all his kids, I think he's got 4 doctors, lawyers, and none of his kids are uneducated. All his kids have degrees. He was a man that forced them to do that, a wise businessman. And one of the things that, you know, when I was talking to him and I was asking him and I said, you built this business empire in the midst of apartheid. How did you do it? Because the stories we hear of Omaponya, you know, the people that built in the cities, you know. And it was interesting for me that he built with a big disregard for government. So wherever he was, he built his own roads. So he'd go in and say, okay, this village doesn't have an own road. Let me build my own road. He went into the kings. He went into the churches. He went into all spheres of society and said, guys, let's build these things. Let's build these things. And
he was a proper industrialist.
Real industrialist. And he was a man that kind of understood that black people could build something of themselves and still, you know, create something in that world. And he really did well and was a very big inspiration. So grew up in Louis Trichardt, went over to high school there, also went to primary school there. And then Stanford Lake College is a college in Limpopo, which at a certain age, I realized that what I was learning was not challenging enough. And in the town that I was in. And I said to my parents, I said, I want to achieve more. I want to do more. Where do you think I can learn or become more, you know? And when we looked around, we found a school that was a bit far from where we were. It was in Tsenin, and was called Stanford Lake College. And that was the school where the wealthy people in Limpopo went, you know? And my dad at that time, he was working for Old Mutual. He was not that wealthy. And I said to my dad, at that time, the school fees was about 90,000 Rand.
How old are you now?
I'm 29.
29, yeah, 90,000 at any given time, boy, is a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a lot at that time.
Sure.
And I said to my dad, I said, he was just working for Old Mutual. I said, what if I could help you start a business to ensure that you could take me to that school? And my dad was like, okay, what do you mean? And I started to think about things. And finally, we landed on a petrol station. We got an old petrol station, JG Machiza petrol station, hired it. And literally, I helped him start that business. He'd come back home with the money. I'd be counting the money. Okay, let's do this. Let's change that. Let's find a cheaper diesel supply. Let's do that. And we're able to raise this money. And I went through to Stanford Lake College. And when I got there, it was a different environment because there I went to school with the premier's children, the minister's children. And I got to see firsthand how they live. Went to school with the Lekhanyanes, went to school with the names that run this country, you know. And from me, coming from obviously Limpopo, or Litrigat rather, where we're not as wealthy as them, you know, I got to learn how they live their lives, you know, got to hear about how they basically live their school, you know, and got to really see the difference between them and the rest.
Yeah.
And when I got to about grade 10, I realized that, listen, my parents were getting so much strain, because what happened was I used to get a lift from the CEO of De Beers Mine in Musina. Because the CEO of De Beers Mine said, my child cannot go to any other school. They must have a bus from De Beers. So I'd get a lift from that bus from De Beers. Here we are. I think it was just like 10 of us with the CEO of De Beers. We're all like, hey, can't upset the CEO's kid, De Beers. They got him from, we'd all go to Stanford and we'd all learn there and come back. And it was in when I got to grade 10, I realized that this was becoming strenuous, because De Beers wanted us now to start paying for that big bus. And I said to my parents, you know what?
Capitalism doesn't play, boy.
Let me just go to a government school. And I went to Hoërskool Litrigat. And it was such a big contrast, because in Stanford Lake College, you were going to school with the black premiers, the ministers.
The premier of Limpopo.
Of Limpopo, yeah.
You mentioned Lekhanyane, which is the ZCC church.
Yeah, the ZCC church. And we were going to school with all of them. And then now, Hoërskool Litrigat, you're going to school with the kids whose parents actually work for their money.
Yeah.
And when I got to Hoërskool Litrigat, I sat down in assembly. So in Stanford Lake College, we'd all sit on these chairs in the barnyard. When I got to Hoërskool Litrigat, everybody sits down.
Sit on the floor, you cross your legs.
And they cross your legs. And there were white kids that were on chairs. And I said, why are the white kids on chairs?
Is this a real thing that you're telling me?
No, listen. I said, why are the white kids on chairs? They said, no, the white kids are part of the LEC, you know. And they were saying this in Afrikaans. And then the assembly starts, everything is in Afrikaans. And I'm saying, how? I didn't hear anything. Why is this thing in Afrikaans? They're like, oh no, things here happen in Afrikaans. So I go to somebody.
LEC, SRC Amaponu.
Yeah, I am a Boer, Alika or something. Yeah.
Okay.
And I go there and I'm like, hey, I need to understand why black people are treated like this in Hoërskool Litrigat. To the point where teachers would say, you people. It is always you people.
Making a noise in the back like monkeys.
And I said to the guys that were there, I asked the question and I said, how do I become a member of the LEC? And they said, we're voting this year. It's too late, right? They said there were 2 months left. And I said, no, there's nothing too late. Let's deal with this. I said, how do they calculate the votes? They said, other LEC members, if they vote for you, you get 10 points. And if a normal student votes for you, you get 1 point. So essentially, the people that make it are LEC members. I said, this is not democracy. Because if the LEC members are white and they vote for you and they give you more points, that means only white people will continue. So I called all the black guys that were in the LEC and I said, guys, you're going to vote for me. We need to change things. They said, what do you mean? I said, we've got issues in the school. We're going to change the school.
Coming through with the mindset as a Stanford, Baba.
Yes,
it's private school mindset here.
And when
coming to disrupt.
When I did that, got voted for, I'm now a member of the LEC in 2 months.
Sitting in the chair.
When I got to the LEC, my first question was, the teachers now explaining, we're all going to be Afrikaans. Raised up my hand. I said, I heard nothing. You will have to repeat what you said in English, or you will have to stick in English. The teacher said, okay, who is this guy? They told him he's a new guy. He's from Stanford. And I said to somebody, there's no need to be asking who I am. You need to repeat. And the teacher then repeats it. Now, I go into there and I said, students in Hoërskool Litrigat, we must start a prayer group. Now, I grew up in a very Christian family. There's something that Christianity does which gives you boldness. Christianity tells you that God lives inside of you. And because God lives inside of you, your color of your skin doesn't matter. You are God. You carry Christ, divinity inside of a human being. That's the level of Christianity that I subscribe to. The scriptures where it says, I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. Now we're saying, okay, if I'm Christ, it means that I can rule the world. It means I can do anything. It means all things are possible for me. That's the type of it. And some people call it prosperity gospel. Some people, that's the one I subscribe to. And I said to them, let's start a Christian movement. I said, let's gather all the black people and let's put them in a hall. We're going to start praying. And we gathered all the black person. I spoke to one of the ladies that were there at Dibao because I couldn't do it because I was now part of the LEC. So I kept saying to her, listen, start a church. And in this church, you're going to teach these black people about who they are in Christ. And the church started, and the messages were, we're taking over. We're here to rule the world. We're destiny changers. You can do whatever you can do. God says you can do it. It's finished. If it's written in the Bible, it's so. And these young kids began to say, Whoa, this guy's boldness. I said to the teacher, I need a debating team. I'm starting a debating team. They said, there's no debating in the school. I said, I'll start it. He said, okay, you can start it. After school, I said, black kids, come, debating. Who's the coach? I said, I'll be the coach. What are we debating? Let's debate. Why are white children given better opportunities in the school? The black child is reading their speech. Well, this has been happening. Other black kids are listening. Hey, I'm part of this debate. Today, when we speak, the kids that I trained in the debate team, doctors, lawyers, doing exceptionally well. And I understood that if you can actually create a propaganda, a machine, you use the gospel, what we have in South Africa, and you create this machine to say, the gospel says to us, the Bible says to us, because this is what the Jews have done. The Bible says, I wish that above all things you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. That's in John. I wish above all things you may prosper. You create a propaganda to say, in South Africa, we will prosper. We will not just get grants and be happy. We will prosper. God wants us to prosper. Being poor is a sin. Being poor is of the devil. Anybody who creates poverty in any shape or form is demonic and must be casted out. And you create an aggressive system where Christians begin to rise up, where pastors say, we're coming, we're agreeing with him, he's right. If you are not doing the right thing, you're of the devil. If you create this, and basically what it is just calling Christians to arise. The 85% of the nation which is already Christian, you're saying to them, wake up from sleeping. Stop going to church and just saying that's it. Begin to realize that if there is a God, God must be proven. There must be prosperity in our nation. We can't continue subscribing to a God that is making it seem as though Africans are poor. If the Bible tells us that we as Christians shall eat the good of the land, why do we still have Christians? And you become aggressive about it and say, the church will no longer be used by this politician and that politician coming to vote. No, the church wants a seat at the table. The church wants universities built for the church in the church. The church wants funds coming from government that will flow through the church. The church is standing up as an economy of its own. The church is rising up. And you sit down with them and you begin to build. Because right now what we see is that the church is used. So Ramaphosa will go to the church, listen to what they are saying. Oh, we are with you. That's it. He's gone. They'll go to ZCC. Oh, we are with you. That's it. He's gone. Come opportunities, the church is still at the same place. Yet in this country, the former census showed us that 85% of people are in the church. If you want to build nation building, it must be done through religion. There's no other way to build a nation but the principles that Christianity subscribes to.
There's no other way.
No. You look at Dubai. They've taken principles of the Old Testament. That's how they build. They built. The reason Dubai works is because they are still using the Bible. They're just using the Old Testament part of it. You have to create a propaganda that sits. And I'm saying propaganda to you because that's what the world uses. But to the Christians, you have to take the word seriously. That's who we are as Christians. And it becomes important for Christians to realize that South Africa has been under siege for too long. And one of the countries that have caused these issues is Europe. Europe is broke. And they are trying to use Africa as their scapegoat because they are realizing that they're headed for the winds. Europe is indirectly trying to sabotage Africa in every way possible. Because remember, most of our wealth went to them. We all know the story. They came through ships, they fooled our uncles, Khwezi, they fooled whatever you want to put it, right? Now, they've sat down and said, we can't go back and fool them the way we used to, their uncles. Let's fool them through intellect. Let's create green energy. Let's create pandemics. Let's create methods that will force them to convene or conform to what we are saying to them. And let's ensure that we keep taking their minerals. I said to somebody, if Europe is giving us so much money for green energy, why are they not using that same money for themselves and we'll keep our coal? Trucks every single week. They're going. We trade more with Europe than we do with Africa. And this has been for years. You look at the wealth of our politicians in South Africa. They're owning the mansions in Europe. The biggest people to make it out of here, they go to Europe. And you know, what I hate about this, and I think it's high time that we begin to call things as they are. These guys are Freemasons. These guys sit together and they plan how to create the Christian country South Africa. I'm basing it on majority, right? Mm-hmm. If Dubai, the majority is Muslim, it's a Muslim country. So if the majority is Christian, it means we're a Christian country. So if you're not Christian, sorry to you, we're not insulting you. I'm basing it on who the majority is. They come and they plan. In the Christian context, we would say the devil is running South Africa. And yet we are saying we are Christians. Because the Bible says the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. That's what Europe has ever done in Africa. They steal from us every day with these trucks. And the time is coming, Penuel, because these people need to be warned and checked to say there are people like me who literally believe the word of God and take it as it is, that are willing to die for this cause. There have been people like this in history who said, if I must die for my convictions and my belief, I'm ready. Paul said, I'm ready to be poured out like a drink offering. Because you came to the state where you realize to say, if God's will of making this nation a prosperous nation will not be fulfilled, then rather we die. But we will not sit back and continue to watch as Europe does what it does year after year. Now, I want to go back to the Zondo Commission because there's something that came out of the Zondo Commission that I really want us to look into. So the Zondo Commission is continuing, everybody is speaking. Then the Zondo Commission says, we're noticing that people that are employed in government, we're noticing that these people are incompetent. These people don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're doing. We want to understand, ANC, when you deploy people, how do you do it? When they get to the ANC says, we have a cadre deployment committee. Zondo Commission says, okay, no problem. Can we see notes from the meeting of the cadre deployment committee to say, this committee sat down and said, all right, this minister, we're putting them here. This department, we're putting SAA, we're giving it to Transnet, we're giving it to... Can we see the notes or the minutes from that meeting to see that there was a process that was followed? Cyril Ramaphosa was the chair of that specific committee. When Zondo Commission asked for those minutes, they were told that the minutes were never created. There were no minutes. Minutes were not taken. Move on. Investigate the Guptas. Focus on other things. When it comes to who runs South Africa, there were no minutes. They said, but it's impossible. You can't have ministers being put into billion-rand departments. You can't have CEOs being put in, and you tell us that there's no minutes. Okay, if there's no minutes, ANC, please let us know who are the people who are part of the cadre deployment committee so that we can find out from other people who were part of the committee to say, really, was there no minutes? We cannot disclose who are the members of the cadre deployment committee. It's a secret. I don't want to speak because I heard that the Freemasons kill.
Well, the politicians in KZN also kill.
Also kill, yeah. But I don't want to speak.
But you're here speaking.
But what I want to say is I was in government. And when we were in government, we noticed that when we speak, there were other people who spoke above us who we did not know them in government. When we asked to say, who is this person? You know, one of the things, and I say this trembling because I understand the dangerousness of me even saying these things. But I can't hold it back. The truth must be known. People need to know what's going on. Go and ask. Whenever you have an ANC conference, everybody knows who is lobbying for your side. Didi Mabuza, he has his caucus, he's lobbying. Jacob Zuma has his caucus, he's lobbying. We all know who are the members of that caucus. The sitting president, who are the members of his lobbying caucus? No one. No one. I know those people. I know them. I know where they sat. I know how they calculated the votes. I know what they did. I know them. Those people are not ANC members. Those people have never been ANC members. Those people were not trained by our government They were trained by the apartheid government. Those people have no interest in rescuing this nation. We see them all the time. You ask, who's the PA of this one? There's a government one, there's another PA. How? This other PA? She won't approve that. How? What do you mean she won't approve? I am a commissioner. I'm sitting at the highest office. She won't approve that.
Hey, now you like this title, commissioner. That's why they were shutting you down.
No.
To fast track, sorry, to Cyril, I'd like us to go back to Louis Trichardt. I want to make a few points. The first one, it's just a point. You're coming from Stanford Lake with your English tendencies into an Afrikaans-dominant institution. It's been one of the issues I've had with June 76, where you find black kids fighting for English in an Afrikaans space instead of fighting for Chivenda or whatever the case may be. The second thing is obviously the leadership that seems to have come through from your grandfather. And I wanted to make a point on the industrialist comment, because studying Aliko Dangote, for example, the wealthiest African, by African I mean black and an African citizen, the way he's been able to also build infrastructure for his cement factories and everything, it's just meant to be a note for people to understand that don't always rely on government when there are certain things you can do for yourself. If you want to say we can't do business here because there's a lot of grass, there's a bush, I mean, you can burn that thing down. You can come cut it down. So kudos to your grandfather. Kudos to Dangote. And it's a learning moment. From Louis Trichardt, you stayed there. You were a leader. You were disrupting. You were creating a prayer group for black kids. You created a debating culture. Is there any story between that and UJ? I want to know your story at UJ and how you end up becoming a commissioner reporting to the sitting president, Cyril Ramaphosa.
Cool. So I just want to backtrack quickly before I get into it. The reason why I'm mentioning that is to say the people that you see in government that have job titles, theirs is just to fill the post. They're not listened to. Yeah. But
so if you're a commissioner in government, shame.
Just know
shame.
Even a minister, just know.
Shame.
Yeah, it's just, they're just collecting.
Sure.
All right. So what happens is when I'm in Hoërskool Utrecht, I start to fight a couple of teachers. The economics teacher, he's talking about returns. He says, right, the bank will give you 6%, 7%, but we as Boere people have got our own societies that give us 10%.
Oh, I love that. Shout out to that teacher, man. You must let them know.
Mr. Kriegel.
Shout out to Mr. Kriegel. We can do better in the banks.
As he's teaching, I'm looking at the whole class. Everybody's writing down notes to say, and I'm like, sorry, who are these Boere people that do 10%? And he's like, no, we do 10%. We own stuff, right? And I said, what's the name? And he says that the name is the Spar Club. I said, I want to become a member. I said, oh, no, sorry, that will never work.
Sure. Savings club. So a spar is to save in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
Savings club.
Then I backtrack and I say, okay, because my first inclination was, hey, these people are making money, right?
Yeah. I want to get in.
Let me find out what's going on here. My second inclination was, let me deal with this teacher. So I stand up and I say,
let me deal with this teacher.
Yeah. So I stand up and I say to him, you will not speak to us like that. And then he says to me, young man, I'm doing the school a favor. I said, you are not doing us a favor here. He said, do you know that I'm not hired by the department? I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm 68 years old. The department only hires up to 65. So I am hired by the school and I get paid by the school. I don't have to listen to you. Then I said, we also don't have to listen to you if that's the case. In actual fact, leave the classroom. And all the other students are busy watching this. And I'm saying to the students, if it's economics, I can teach this thing.
You don't know where this activist, disruptive leaning you had came from. I'm trying to figure out if there was someone in your family, if there's something you saw on TV. A lot of us were powered up by Julius Malema back in the day. And we started being, some people it was from Yizo or Chester, no Papa actually. And so I'm trying to figure out, do you know where that came from for you?
Mine comes from the church.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely comes from the church.
Being an activist for God and for Christ.
Yes, believing the word of God for what it is.
Thing. Okay.
Yeah. And really what begins to happen is this teacher and I get into the scuffle of saying, you will not say you black people will never find about it. And what this teacher then realizes is that, this guy is going somewhere. I need to talk to him and engage and understand what black people are doing. So me and him now, he does the lesson. After he does the lesson, he says, class, you can rest. Mpho, come. Let's talk economics. And we now start to talk. And what I begin to learn at that time, and maybe let me finish the story because I want to come back to what I learned about how Buddha people used to function and the issues that caused corruption to continue. But let's finish the UJ. After finishing, I'm like, cool. I said to my dad, I'm never going to work for somebody. My dad says, are you crazy? This is how life works. I said, nope, I'm never going to work for somebody. And what happens is I get to UJ. When I get to UJ, the first thing I do is I say, okay, cool, I'm here. I ask the tutors, dude, how much are you earning? The tutor says to me, well, I'm making 10,000 Rand. I'm doing this. I'm working at a law firm. And I'm like, 10,000? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that's not going to work. And he's like, what do you mean it's not going to work? I'm like, I have a plan for my life. And 10,000 is not going to fit it. There must be a Merc. There must be a department in Sandton. There must be... And what's interesting is that I come from Venda. I mean, we only got McDonald's recently, right? The tallest buildings are not that tall. Like, it's not... So we saw these things on TV. So when
McDonald's is a sign of success. I've seen this when we got McDonald's in Newcastle. Yeah.
So to me, it's now become a thing of like, okay, Joburg is the place where things happen, you know? And we grew up watching Generations. You grew up watching people on our Kani, on our Tau, who were running these firms, and they were, you know, and those narratives were important.
Very important.
It's so sad that... You know, now TV is turning into drug dealers and funeral people. And, you know, we grew up watching these people, and you'd watch Connie Ferguson, you know, and those stories for me, that's what Joburg was about.
I want to stop you there. Ukrey Chabesi, who's also a crypto millionaire, also references Generations from back in Malawi before he even got to Cape Town as an aspirational show that he watched. And he said, I want to be like that. So you're very right in the propaganda of the things that we're showing kids is what they aspire to. And if the successful families in all our telenovelas are criminals and thugs and tenderpreneurs, that's what kids are going to aspire to.
And for me, it's such a big issue that we also need to deal with, because now television is perpetuating rape, crime, drugs, and alcohol.
Sure.
Literally, that's their mandate. But now...
Joburg is meant to be the place to be. You come from Venda, and you're like, no, man, I've seen better things. 10K is not it.
This is, yeah. So I say to this guy, I'm like, okay, I'll continue studying, because my parents said, you have to get a degree. You know, I said, fine, I'll continue studying. But while I'm studying, I need to make money, right? So I look around, I'm like, how am I going to make money? I'm like, this is going to be tricky. What do I have? I don't have much capital, right? I'm like, cool. I've got a mop. I've got a broomstick. My parents bought me cleaning things. I'm like, cool. I want to open a cleaning business, right? Print out flyers using my student card in UJ. Open up a cleaning business.
Where were you? Which campus?
UJ, APK.
Kingsway,
yeah.
Were you staying at Res off campus?
Off campus.
Okay.
Yeah, Mill Park Muse.
Hey,
and
fancy living.
Well,
I was down the road at Lapori Village.
Okay.
Please carry on.
Cool. So what happens is I call it Richard's cleaning business, because my granddad's name was Richard.
That's dope.
And I didn't want my students knowing it's me. So I still had that thing of like, ooh, okay, I'm in a new environment. This is Joburg. I now started handing it out in the building that I was living in. Richard's Laundry Services. I'll do your laundry. I'll do your cleaning. Call me 90 rands, right? I go on OLX. At the time there was OLX. Put up a post. I'm looking for a cleaning lady. I find a lady, Sylvia. She comes from Orange Farm. She's like, hey, Tanwam, let's work. Right, I start a cleaning business. We start cleaning students' apartments. As I start cleaning students' apartment, I'm going to the lecture hall. Coming back, we're cleaning this room. Going to the lecture hall. People are seeing me. They're like, oh, dude, you were in the lecture hall. You must be poor if you're cleaning. Okay, you know what? Instead of paying you 90 Rand, I'll give you 200. I'm like, oh, people think like this about people that are making money. I'm like, this is beautiful. I start selling muffins as well. So as we clean, come in, oh, we're selling muffins. People are like, oh, here's 30 Rand. I'm like, oh my goodness. People in Joburg are not there. Because in Venda, by the way, you can't do that. In Venda, if you say you want to clean people's apartments, they'll be like, are you crazy? I can do it myself.
I can clean my own apartment. Why are you giving me muffins? I can bake.
Yeah. And now I'm like, hey, people in Joburg are ready, you know. And as I'm doing this, I start thinking, what else can I do? Stones in Melville. I'm like, I'm going to go there. After Grooves.
Sorry, that's a club for people that don't know.
That's a club, yeah.
It was a club there in Melville, there above Nando's.
Above Nando's, yeah. I've got my little braai stand there. And I've got my Boerewors rolls there, and I'm selling. My classmates are seeing me. They're like, this dude must be going through a tough time. They're drunk. They're like, dude, here's 100 Rand. I'm like, 100 Rand for a Boerewors roll. Moved to 7th Street, because that became the modus operandi. And I start building this capital from my cleaning business. And I started realizing my life is running into a bit of a haphazard situation because I still need to pass.
Sure.
But at the same time, I still need to. And I started realizing that lecturers are people. I mean, I always tell people that if I missed an exam, I'd go up to the professor's, or like a test, I'd go up to the professor's office and be like, oh, I know what I was supposed to do. I missed it. Can we do it? I can make it an oral. They're like, okay, great. Because I knew that once you go oral, it's easy because things happen at that level. So go there, oral test. And I mean, I understood how concepts work. I've always understood how things work for me. It's always, things work in this way. So I could always answer anything because I've always understood how things are supposed to work. So as I was doing that, I realized I'm going to run into trouble. So I find a girl called Juta. She was my first employee. She was studying. She was 2 years ahead of me. And I'm like, Juta, can you start working with me in the cleaning business? And Juta says, okay, cool, let's do it. She starts working. Now we've got 3 people. I start hiring more. And basically at that time, we had about 9 people, started cleaning buildings, every building in Braamfontein before people moved in. We used to clean it, 700 Rand for that building, and started growing that business. And while growing that business, I start meeting guys like Kiyosaki. And Kiyosaki says, if you have to sweat to make your money, you don't own a business.
Hey.
You're self-employed. And I'm like, who's this man?
Yeah, Kiyosaki.
Why is he insulting me? And after meeting these guys, I started researching on, okay, what are the other guys doing? And that's when I got to understand.
What do you mean by meet him?
Like I went to Sandton City where he was having a conference at the time. Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, yeah.
Come and speak in Sandton a bit.
Yeah. And after meeting him, he was swearing, right? And I'm Christian.
He swears a lot.
Yeah.
Him and Trump. Because
yes. And their swearing is very derogatory.
Correct.
And I'm the type of Christian who's taught that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So if I meet you and you're not Christian, I'll beat you. At whatever it is. It's always been like that for the rest of my life. If I meet a non-Christian, I'll beat them. Because greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And I must prove the word.
According to you, don't we all have Christ in us?
Not everybody.
Being a non-Christian shouldn't mean I'm not a child of Christ.
Okay, we're not going to get into that debate. Okay. I need to continue.
No problem.
So
Please continue.
I see Robert Kiyosaki and I'm
sounds like you're excluding, if you're not Christian,
we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Sure.
So I'm like, Robert Kiyosaki, I'm going to beat these guys when it comes to investing. That was me. I was like, there's no way I'm going to listen to these non-Christians telling me they're making money from real estate and we as Africans will always be poor if we don't invest in real estate and buy their course, and I said, I'm going to beat these guys.
Buy the course. Don't forget to buy the course.
And after saying I'm going to beat these guys, I then start looking at what can I invest in that's going to give me the highest return in the world. And as I start researching, I fall into cobwebs of scams. Kipi, Triple M, I put in money here. Hey, the money is gone. I'm like, hey, okay.
Hey, we've had a lot of brands in this country. We've had a lot of brands that have come and gone.
I go back and I'm like, God, maybe that man had something. What's going on here, And as I do this, one of the ladies from one of those things that she was part of Kipi, she says to me, Mpho, there's something called Bitcoin. I want you to help me buy it. And I'm like, huh? What is this Bitcoin thing? And I say to her, aye, man, this is a scam. Because at that time, I was already been scammed so many times. And she says to me, no, it's not a scam. It's Bitcoin. Buy it for me. I'm going to send you 1,000 Rand. She sends me 1,000 Rand. As she sends me the 1,000 Rands, I go on the internet. What is Bitcoin? I chat to this guy on this local Bitcoins platform. And after saying to him, he says to me, send me money into my account. I'll send you the Bitcoin. I send him the money to his account, bank account, FNB. He says to me, the Bitcoins are in your wallet. Pick up the call. I'm like, Ma, we've been scammed again. I sent this guy money. He said the Bitcoin is in my wallet. He doesn't know my address. He doesn't even know a single thing about me. We've been scammed again. And this lady is like, oh, okay, it's fine. Let's lose. So I then text this guy and I'm now upset. And I'm saying, you will be punished. You've messed with the wrong one.
We're going to find you.
Yeah. And then this guy's like, no, dude, look above. There are numbers. I look above on my screen. He's like, those numbers are the Bitcoins that you just bought. I'm like, are you crazy? I've just sent you money. You told me you're sending me numbers. What's going on? Refund me this, that, and the other. And the guy says, listen, you're crazy. Let me add you onto my Chinese blogs where people talking about this thing called Bitcoin. So he adds me there and I start reading about it. I'm like, hey, this is interesting. So I read about it and I get to understand what Bitcoin was trying to achieve. And really what it was trying to achieve a system where currency is a fair game. Now, I don't want to get into this because this is a very long conversation.
Sure.
But one of our issues in Africa is currency. We're on the back end of currency. We'll never get ahead until we talk about currency. And when you talk about currency, business owners get uncomfortable. The radical left wants to be very radical, but we need to have a conversation and a constructive conversation.
By currency, are you talking money or are you talking value?
Who said that the rand is worth 19 to the dollar?
Sure.
Yeah.
You talk about value.
The value of the currency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not currency in terms of naira, kwacha. You're saying we're on the back end of understanding value.
Where value comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I read it, for me, it was quick to say, this works. I'm going to make money in this. Immediately got involved, put in everything. Literally, I was busy eating just a small sandwich, everything into Bitcoin. Everything into Bitcoin. I mean, at one point, I had 200 Bitcoins.
Jeez.
One Bitcoin today is about 500,000. So
500,000?
Yeah, for one
Rand?
Bitcoin.
Dollars?
Rand.
Okay.
Yeah, it got to 1 million. Yeah. So and immediately as I was sitting in my lecture hall and I'm now part of this Bitcoin thing and I'm in the meetings now when the Bitcoin people are talking and they're saying, right, we're developing, these are now the creators. And I believe I've met the creator of Bitcoin. There was a gentleman who invited me to New York City who, the story for me, I believe he created Bitcoin.
This is a white person?
Satoshi Nakamoto, yes.
Not a Japanese person?
No.
The person that you met was a white person?
It's a white guy who started Microsoft with Bill Gates and Bill Gates sold him out and threatened him, and he got upset, and after that, he decided to start something else.
And you're convinced this is the Bitcoin guy?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The public doesn't need to know because the purpose of Bitcoin is so
but there are people that would be interested in your story because people don't know the Bitcoin founder. And if you feel that you've met the person or the person behind the name,
but I'd never rat him
interesting.
out.
No, you don't have to rat him out.
Yeah.
But it becomes interesting conversation for people that are into crypto.
True. Very true. So I get to university, open up my laptop, and it used to be a norm for me, listen to what the lecturer is saying and focus on beating Robert Kiyosaki. Focus on creating this wealth that needs to be created in Africa. And as I'm checking, Bitcoin shoots up. I look at my Bitcoins, do the conversion. I realize I'm a millionaire.
Yes.
Close my laptop, go to the 6th floor of UJ to the tax lecturers. I want to see the tax lecturer. They're like, oh, but you're not studying tax. I said, I want to see the tax lecturer. They're like, okay, come in. There's this crazy kid who wants to see you. Sit down. I'm like, I've made $1 million through Bitcoin. I don't want things to go wrong with SARS. What should I do? This tax lecturer says, oh, Bitcoin. I've heard about it. No, man, that thing's not real money. It's gaming money. And I sit down and I'm like, I am wiser than these lecturers. And I'm here listening to them telling me these things.
They were right at the time, in my opinion.
They weren't. And
what I mean by that is my understanding of value is two people at least have to agree. And as soon as the other person does not agree on that this thing is valuable, it has no value.
Okay, I hear that.
But you are right in terms of the industry.
Yes, in terms of education.
Yeah.
Yeah, to say an educator should know what's currently trending and going on in the world. They should understand it completely because their students, if they're coming with a solution, the educator should say, wow, great, that's what I'm studying, that's what I'm, But anyway, cool. I then leave, I go to Campus Square and I'm like, guys, I made $1 million. I want to deposit it into my account. They're like, oh, you've got a Mega U account. A Mega U is a student account. You can't deposit anything more than, I think it was 20,000 at the time. I'm like, okay, these ones are wasting my time. Go to Campus Square. I go to Cresta Mall. Get there. I'm like, I've got R1 million. I want to deposit into my account. They're like, no, if do you have a business? I'm like, no, I don't have a business. What do you mean? They're like, no, usually people that get a business, they make the millions. I'm like, no, I've got the millions. They're like, okay, fine, open a business and come back. Do the whole thing, open a business, come back. I'm like, I'm ready. They're like, yep. Go on my crypto platform, transfer, move the crypto into rands, right? And after I do that, I walk out of Cresta. And the first thing I say to myself is, God is true. I said to myself that greater is he that lives in me than he that lives in the world. I said, I will beat these men who continue to use these derogatory terms against Africa. By my God, I will beat them. I walk out and I said, I've done it. God is true. First thing I do, I give back. Now, because I'm Christian, when it comes to tithe, when it comes to giving, I don't compromise. Most of my money, I give. Most of the money that I've had, I've given away. If you look at my lifestyle, I should be living a much more luxurious lifestyle. I don't. Keep it minimalistic, give. Money belongs to God. And money is a thing that God gives.
Money belongs to God.
It really does. Let's continue. And while I'm walking out of Cresta and I've done all this, I'm like, what do I do? Walk into VW. I'm a young person. I'm like, okay, great. I need to get a car. Get there, talk to the guy. Hey, I want to buy a car. Oh, what's the nice car? Like, oh, there's this Golf. It was the Golf 6 at the time. I'm like, oh, I want to buy this Golf 6. He's like, oh, it's expensive. When you start working, you can come back. I'm like, no, I've got the money. He's like, oh, young man. He's a vendor guy. He's like, oh, young man, you are talking the faith language. Praise God. I'm like, hey, here's the money. He's like, how did you get the money? I'm like, firstly, it was God. But secondly, I had a strategy. Do whatever it is to raise money in university because people in Johannesburg will give you money for anything. Literally.
Unfortunately, it's a lazy space because people
muffins,
are focused on other things.
Exactly. In Venda, you can't do half of the things that I've done. And after that, walk out with my Golf 7, buy a house in North Cliff, continue to do that. And as I'm doing that, people then ask me and say...
You can't just pass by these things like they're normal. You're 21?
21, yeah. 20.
20 years old, you're buying...
Houses,
Golf 7, and you bought a house in North Cliff.
Yeah, and in Sandton. Remember I said I want to buy my place in Sandton?
Jeez.
And I'm now, everybody wants me. Investec is saying, come speak to us. Tell us what this thing is.
As soon as they see the numbers
Absa
on your
saying,
account,
come speak to us. Everybody's saying, who is this child? People are like, yeah, what's going on? And for me, it was normal. Because one, I believed that God could do these great things. But two, I definitely believe that as black people, we were able to do these things. So for me, it was, what do you mean? Mark Zuckerberg is building Facebook. I'm only doing,
sure.
I'm only doing
this is still small time.
And everybody around me was saying, my God, this is different. Get to these banks. I start charging 50,000 Rand for me to speak for an hour.
What gave you that confidence to charge 50K? Had you researched?
I started off with 5,000. Saw people like Vusi Temagwai. At that time, Vusi Temagwai was charging 80,000. I listened to Vusi and I was like, Vusi is telling them about strategy. He's not really telling them something new that they've never heard. Yeah. So I'm like, I've got something new that they've never heard. Right, I'm at 50. So at the age of 21, already banks were paying, Absa was paying, everybody was paying to say, come, let this kid come tell us, and all of them obviously trying to hire me. There was one man who I sat with, Ubab Zungu, shout out to him, who sat down with me at that time and he said to me, he owns Zungu Investments, he owns Amazulu.
Sandile
Zungu, yeah. He sat down with me and he tried to hire me from a very young age. He was like, listen, how much do you want? Come help us build because we see Naspers is winning with Tencent. We need you. And from a young age, I've always known that I can't be employed when there's so many young people are unemployed, So, at the age of 22, I was employing over 40 people. Running businesses. People ask me, where did you learn this from? I'm like, the only inspiration I've ever had is my granddad. I only saw him once a week because my grandmother's day was Thursday. So how my granddad functioned is...
What a story.
Yeah, he had days for his wives. So
7 days a week. That's why he had 7 wives. Yeah. What a boss.
So my
Not even a day of rest. He should have had 6 wives. Okay, please carry on. Mkulu had no day of rest, Baba.
No, he had no day. No, he was always working. So
we'll call it working. But please continue.
No, believe me, he was, and this was the different thing about my granddad, by the way. He was always working because when he got to the store, whatever store, so the woman would prepare for him to say, my day is Thursday. So if she knows he's coming on Thursday, everything needs to be done. She's sitting down with him with a book. He's now the accountant, they've got glass, they're counting money. Why is this person not paying? Right, the interest on this one needs to be decreased. And I'm watching these people and I'm like, what school did you guys go to? My grandmother, she knew, she could look at a client and know that this person took bag of Millie meals, they took this, they took that, and they owe her this much, and this is how much they did. From her brain. She was able to, from a young age, when I used to watch her sell, she was able to quickly take money, quickly sell, change it. And then she said to me, what am I doing? Do you need a calculator? I said, yeah. She said, no, I don't need a calculator. I said, okay, grandma, you don't need a calculator. Dumb as well. I'm now changing from a young age, changing money. What do you need? And she was bold because she ran a bottle store and her husband was away, by the way. There were men that came in and tried to rob. Some, we had unfortunate instances. When I was young, one of my first interactions was them robbing the store, right? My parents were running and these guys were coming with AK-47s. So from a young age, I learned from my grandmother to be like, regardless of the fact that they robbed her last night, the next morning, she's opening up a store. There'd be drunk men that would come to her and say, no, you don't owe me this. But she had 2 dogs next to her. And she'd stand up to them and she'd look at them and she'd say, you're not going to do anything to me. I said you owe me money and you pay me. And it was those things that I learned from a young age. She'd be like, ooh, you can be bold. Even as a woman, you can be bold, And I'd look around and be like, okay, So I grew up in that boldness, And when I was then there in that world advising, then I'm in New York City. Meet up with a couple of guys that were working on
because South Africa was too small for you.
Yeah,
at that time.
I got to the point where I felt I've proven God in this nation. Because remember, the one thing about...
Did you finish at UJ?
No.
Hey, I'm a dropout.
But this is the interesting thing. I left when I was just left with my final exams. So I've got my transcript because many young people sort of leave when school is trapping them.
Yeah.
I didn't leave because it was trapping me. I left because I was going to meet Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay.
So when
Mark also left because business was calling.
I guess. But when I left, it was to go and study in Stanford University. So it was a bit different. But anyway, and after that period, I then decided, cool, I'm going over to New York City. When I get to New York City, I'm meeting these guys that are saying we're working on an interoperability platform, which basically means we're going to use blockchain to provide payments to everybody in Africa and allow currencies to interact with each other in different countries. What they were basically saying was they don't like the fact that a maid from Malawi working in South Africa, when she has to send money to Malawi, it has to go through a bus, and then the bus got in an accident. And so they wanted to create a platform for her to be able to do that. So I was going to join those guys. And as I was doing so, I came back to South Africa. And when I came back, somebody said to me, listen, you've been called, Fikile Mbalula's hosting something. They're calling you to come and speak on Cyril Ramaphosa and what the ANC will do on 4th Industrial Revolution. So I get there and I give them the plan, tell them this is what we'll do, talk to the president, this is what we need to do. And immediately the president says, listen, we need you. Come through, come advise us. And that's how I joined the commission. When I joined the commission... You turned down Usandile Zung when you joined Cyril. So, no, but that was just advisory. I didn't want a job. I was looking for that.
Okay.
And there we all got in with the hopes of we're going to change the country. One of the men that inspired me was Chirizi from UJ, an exceptional man. And, working alongside him, the CEO of MTN, exceptional, CEO of Vodacom, exceptional. I met so many great people, Ernst & Young, PwC. These were all CEOs, I always tell the story that the first meeting I went to, lunchtime, I've always had that thing of saying wherever I need to be, I need to shine. And the reason when I say that is I need to shine because the Bible says arise and shine. So it's always inherent to say the scriptures are life to me. So I live the scriptures. If you put me and a Jewish person together, we live in the same principles because they also believe in the scriptures. And life makes sense because the scriptures make sense. Now, backtrack, I get there, CEO of MTN, CEO of Vodacom, it's lunchtime now. We're seated there and then I'm there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to join these guys and listen to what these guys talk about. And the conversation of the day was holiday homes. The CEO of MTN was saying, oh, my holiday home to upkeep it is so expensive in Spain. CEO of Vodacom was saying, my holiday home. And I got there and I was like, God, there are some levels that I haven't entered. Because I thought owning a property in Northcliffe, owning an apartment in Sandton is having made it.
So you've made it.
Here these guys are
Don't
saying
let anyone lie to you, Baba. On the African continent, if you own a property in Northcliffe or Sandton, you've made it. Don't let some CEO of these guys put you under pressure.
No, but these guys are now saying they've got these holiday homes. So I'm now thinking, okay, we need to work, And obviously these CEOs are not my color. The CEO of MTN was a white gentleman. And of course the CEO of Vodacom was Indian, which was great. But I got to then realize to say, if we are so far behind that the conversation of holiday home doesn't happen in our circles, it doesn't even take off. I realized to say the big error has happened. And it's time that we actually come back and fix this country. Because we're perpetuating in an environment all around the world where black people, Africans, South Africans, are known for poverty, handouts, suffering, not being smart, not being able to build things, not technologically savvy. These are the people you give breadcrumbs to. These are the people you fool. Because we all keep quiet. And the only voices they ever hear are the voices of those that are screaming, kill the Boer, because that's what the international community knows. They know that when you talk about leaders in Africa, you can't talk about blockchain, you can't talk about AI, you can't talk about any machine learning because they're talking about killing people. However, these sides of the story they never hear. And that's why I had to say, although I'm a nerd, by the way, I'm a nerd by nature. I don't want to talk to people. And that's why when I talk to people and do interviews, it's so awkward to me because that's not what I want to do. I want to just read, build concepts and build amazing things that will prove that God exists in a man on earth. That's what I want to do. So automatically, when I now have to translate into this, I had to say, you know what? Because I need to do this, I'll do it. And what that means is the angle I'm going to do it. I'm not going to sit here and say, I'll build houses. I'll take you to school. No. I'm going to sit here and say, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it in a big way. When I leave the presidency, after 4 years, I need to make sure that people say it was President Mpho Dagada who changed this country. He came in with these solutions. This is what he built. It should not be a situation where people are saying, oh, but the guy came in and no. And when we look at some of these things, we begin to see that the cracks are all over the world. You know, I went to a funeral in Soweto where 2 kids had bought from Pakistanians. And these Pakistanians sold them biscuits, and they ate the biscuits, they passed on, and the other 2 were in hospital. And it was such a sad funeral. And when I was at that funeral, you know, I had a young person saying to me, she went onto Twitter and she was like, yeah, these politicians are all the same. This guy goes to people's funerals. What is a politician doing at people's funeral? And I said to them to say, it's very important that you attend community funerals in South Africa, because the truth comes out at funerals in South Africa, especially in Limpopo. The truth at a funeral will always come out, because that's when people are not excited and, hey, we are at a rally, and that's where people are facing reality. And a gentleman came up and said, you know, these kids passed on poison. When we asked the forensics in the country to check what poison killed these people, the forensics of the nation said they've got a backlog of 1 year. You can only get those results after 1 year. And I listened to this, and I listened to the whole community, and everybody in Soweto was saying, we're sick. We're always in hospital because these Pakistanis are selling us rotten goods. And I go and check to look at how they enter the country and how they work and how this syndicate actually functions. I have a full understanding of how they work. Nobody else does. No one else does. How do I have a full understanding? Because I'm a tech guy. I know how they move their money. I know how they get the money in and out. And I'll quickly explain it. What these guys do is they steal money from other nations and they move the money into cryptocurrency. They come into South Africa, and through peer-to-peer exchange, they get South Africans to open up bank accounts, and they move the money from crypto to our nation. It did not pass through the Reserve Bank. It's unregistered. It's unknown. That network amongst themselves, they move the money amongst themselves. When they are done, they move it back to crypto and they move it back into their own countries. They got in, they got out. Government doesn't even know they exist. When there's issues in the country, they are quick to move the money into crypto and leave. When they want to bring in more, quick, bring the money into crypto and function. They move volumes untaxed.
Cryptocurrencies are dangerous. We have to accept and acknowledge that.
Look, I think for me, the issue is not the cryptocurrency. The issue is a government that is not safe is a danger to itself. Because how do these Pakistanis come in? They leave through the fire hydrants at Wartambo. A whole syndicate that the minister is aware of, that the Hawks have a report on, that Maufiga, you book a plane to say, I'm flying to Dubai, but I'll fly through South Africa. You land through Emirates. When you are in the lounge, you say, you find a person, that person gives you their clogging card, you clog out, and you're in the country. Someone is waiting for you there, they meet you there, you open your cryptocurrency wallet account, you get a person on the side of the road, you open up a bank account for them, you put the money there, and voila, you're functioning. Now, a government or a government minister go and explain to them how to deal with this issue. All they'll say is, Operation Dudula, we want to kill these people. You're killing people that are moving money. It's not going to work. Focus on the money, get the money. How do you get the money? Now, that's where people like me can come in and say, oh, by the way, if you want to get these people's money, there's an easy way to get this money. Freeze this, that, and the other, and they won't be able to move, because if you come into a country, you can't come in with money bags. So the government doesn't understand how every Pakistani is popping up. Of course they're popping up. They're moving stolen funds from their own government. Terrorists take over government. They're like, okay, this billion, we are moving it to South Africa. Send our boys over. Let them just be growing it. When we need it, we'll tell them. They move it. That's what these groups are doing.
Can I ask a sneaky question?
Go ahead.
You said you can't bring money into this country with money bags. This is the only sneaky question I'll ask. and you don't have to answer it. How do you think money bags got to Phala Phala?
Oh, I know the truth. I know the truth behind that.
Okay. No, we can leave it at that.
But yeah, let's leave it there.
I think in the interest of time, I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 more questions. And I'd like you to please commit to come back. And I see you're a very prepared guy. And give us, I'm going to send to you privately a list of all the major issues I think the citizens of South Africa complain about. And then your solutions to them. But when you come back, things like load shedding, potholes, crime, jobs, foreigners, etc. So we can come back and thrash those out. The first question is your opinion on Cyril Ramaphosa as a president, especially as someone who's worked with him. The second one is, I sat here with Mmusi Maimane of Bosa, and he had a lot of really great ideas. Some of them were linked to technology as well. And one of the questions I asked him was, are you not being idealistic? Do you really think South Africa and South Africans are actually ready for some of these solutions? Which would be great, but I mean, you need to vote for them, etc. Why do them through politics? Why not try and come up with these solutions? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, for all intents and purposes, is not a politician, but he solves certain problems. So does Elon Musk, so does Jeff Bezos, maybe Jack Ma to some degree, Aliko Dangote. They solve certain problems in their countries without necessarily doing it through a political vehicle. So why would you want to do these things through politics and not maybe through private enterprise or another way? And then my last question to close off is, do you believe in democracy? Thank you. So your opinion on Cyril, why not do this through private industry and not politics? And do you believe in democracy?
All right. So these questions warrant a very long answer, but I'm going to try to keep them short. So the first thing is, I've been very disappointed in Cyril Ramaphosa for a couple of reasons. We expected that he was going to be able to stand up and do the right thing. And what we saw somebody who came in, or was brought in rather, to continue perpetuating the same thing we see that we've always seen, that people want to loot from South Africa. And I had wished that we had more time, because I wanted to give you Cyril's history so that you understand it from a money perspective.
We can do that when you come back.
Okay, when we do, yeah.
And then you'll answer that question in full, because one of the things I want to figure out is, do you think Cyril is a good person? Do you think he's trying to do the right thing? Because a lot of people that support Cyril that I've met, they always isolate him as a good guy who's functioning in a den of thieves. And even though he's trying to do the right thing, it's not him. He's fine. So when things like Phala Phala came through, all of a sudden we're like, here's your good guy. What now? And through Phala Phala, from my opinion, it looks like South African Revenue Services, the SARS, the South African Reserve Bank, the SARB, and other people are not willing. This guy, forget now ANC corruption and all the mafias. Here, this is speaking directly to him. And it's like, no, he's fine. And you're like, yeah, you see now you're bullshitting all of us. So I'm hoping when you come back and you do that history, I'd like to hear if you think, especially as what I believe is a staunch Christian, if you believe he's a good person trying to do the right thing, if you believe he is that, or if you believe he's part of the rot that we've been mentioning since you started.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get into that when you do that.
No problem.
Why politics? Now, there's lots of things people don't understand. One of the things that they don't understand is Mark Zuckerberg is Mark Zuckerberg today because of politics.
Bill Gates as well. By the way, he's one of the investors in nuclear, since you spoke about nuclear. He invests in nuclear. Terra Nova is the company in America.
So to my point is to say that you cannot build anything without the political. I mean, let's take it back to God. There was a method in the Bible of ruling with the priests and the kings. Those two things, but this is before the Vatican.
No, I'm just thinking of the Vatican. It's the only state I'm aware of that is run by the church or by a religious group directly.
And really what I'm trying to get to is that the prosperity of a nation is directly linked to its government. You can't build $1 billion business in South Africa if your government is not right. We've tried it. I've seen people try it. I've seen the best minds try it. People like Mark Shuttleworth who left. People who've left South Africa, and the moment they leave, they make it.
They thrive. About Elon Musk.
So it becomes, and I would have loved for us to touch on him because there's something that I wanted to talk, because Elon Musk did try and get a hold of Cyril to try and open up a factory in South Africa. And Cyril stopped him. But anyway, we'll get to
He's also tried to bring in cheap, free internet connectivity. And he was throttled by partly the BEE regulation because the guys need to have a stake. But there may be other reasons as well. Sorry.
So the political sphere for me is a sphere that we all need to take seriously to ensure that everything gets set up properly so that the system can run properly. I always say to people that my dream really is to be the transition. I don't quite enjoy politics. I don't enjoy it. There's nothing about me that says politics at all. I'm a thinker. I'm a creator. I'm an innovator. I want to be creating new things. I want to be building new things. For me, it's an assignment that I believe that it's time that young people gather up together. And that's what we're doing. We're bringing in young people to say, let's forget about this one's parents were part of the struggle. This one has done this. Let's bring young people together and say, guys, enough is enough. There shouldn't be poverty in South Africa. We should not be having the issues that we've got at the moment. No South African should be poor. This land is capable of making each and every one of us prosperous. And really rallying them in and saying, we're in crisis. And when you're in crisis, you can't say, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not going to get involved in politics. No, we're in crisis. When your nation is in crisis, you must get involved. Unemployment, drugs, alcohol, depression, anxiety, suicide. We need new industries. So for me, it's a call to say we need a leader with a vision, a leader with a purpose, to be able to create this so that South Africans can live for a purpose, because we have so many young people that are living with no purpose. They wake up every day, they go to sleep, there's nothing for them. So bring in that vision to say it's important that we have a vision as a country where employment is a thing, equal opportunities for everybody, where electricity actually works in our nation, free quality education, quality education, functioning water. These are things that you need to build a nation. And it's to ensure that the future generation that's coming, they can be proud to say they were people who built something. Every nation has a person who will set aside what they were doing and focus on building. They have a group of people. If you look at Singapore, if you look at America, the founding fathers, there were people who said, we'll set aside everything and focus on building, putting in good systems in place. And that's what Arise South Africa is. We're a group of young people, and we're calling on other people to say, guys, don't watch us build from a distance and say, hey, let's watch, we'll see, we'll give them a vote. No, come on board and say, hey, we're building. Let's challenge one another in this building. Let's create something that we can call our own. Here, there's no struggle song. There's no Marxism, Kalism. Hey, we are left, we are right. Hey, we have politics of the DA. Hey, no. For us, if the Western Cape gets 100% audit, we say congratulations, that's good. If the EFF does, we are not in the politics of this, that, and we are in the politics of uniting a nation, because we understand that through that unity, all of us can prosper.
And for you, that's still through politics and government and not from outside.
Definitely. Because if you look at the apartheid government, they took away too much from our people. What you're saying could have been possible if the apartheid government did not do what they did. Because as a result of that, our people would have had enough. South Africans have nothing. They have nothing. I often say to people that the worst thing about this country is even the most respected billionaires, I've sat with them, they have nothing. They are all coming to bow down and say, IDC, tell us something. Even the ones that people are like, hey, this one, they have nothing. So black people have not had time to build in this country. So we do need government to play its role, because you can't, for example, Penuel, if you grew up in a normal situation where there was no apartheid, who knows, maybe your mom or dad would have sponsored you to be able to grow your own business, giving you capital to start a business. They can't do that because they also had nothing in the time of apartheid. So it becomes important that we use this government to ensure that it creates something out of it. And that's why we all have to do it. It's a national revival. Everyone and everybody must stand up and say, enough is enough. I'm arising. I'm arising from the depression. I'm arising from the circumstances. I'm arising from all these issues that this government is kept in. I'm arising. It's an action. I had to do it. And I did it while being inside. I said, enough is enough. I must arise. Come what may, no fear, I must arise. And what we want that zeal, that fire that 1994 had, when they all stood up and said, we're backing this, there must be a change. And they all came out as young people and they voted. It was an electrifying time for our nation. We want to put South Africans first. We want to say, South Africans, your voices can be heard. You can dictate and decide. And nothing wrong. We don't want to seem like we're doing something wrong. There's nothing wrong with putting South Africans first. Put South Africans first. It is their nation. They deserve to be put first. And for this, you have to have a vision that all of us can carve together and run towards that vision. Not an outside. You don't need people that are comrades, that have held the gun, no, you need a young person who will bridge the gap. The age that I'm at is the age of our country. I'm able to relate to the old because I've worked and lived in that world. I'm able to relate to the TikTok generation. And you bring forth the young people, you bring forth the old people, and you say, let's arise together and move forward. Because you need a leader that will be able to relate to both and bring them together. As young people, we have legs on our feet. We're ready to run. We're ready to lay aside everything else and say, for this vision, we want these two generations to work together and make this country something that young people can be proud about. We're getting just warmed up. People often say to me as a politician, Arise is intense. And I said, we're just getting warmed up. We're just getting started. We haven't even started. And it becomes important for us to realize that I am not the only one. There are many other Josephs. There are many other Davids. There are many other Elijahs. There are many others that are like me, that have been waiting to hear somebody like me say, I'm doing it, and they're coming on board. And we've been seeing this. We've heard big pastors call us and say, listen, we are ready to leave this ANC cult that we've joined. We want to build with you guys. We've had big businesses call us and say, we're ready to support you guys. We've had people say, we want to make this country work. Because if we don't make this country work, we'll have nothing else left out of it. A country where everybody becomes more wealthier. A country where everybody becomes prosperous. A country that each and every one of us can be proud of. And this we can build through democracy.
Cheers. Mpho Dagada. Thank you so much for joining us on the Penuel show, and I look forward to us fleshing out the technicalities of how we're going to build this country moving forward.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on all the successes of the podcast. I think it's an exceptional platform, and we're wishing you all the best and hoping that it will grow.
Thanks a lot, bro.
Thank you.
Jeez. This guy should become a pastor of one of those churches. He breathes fire. Since you're not joining the movement, Baba, the church. Are you a Christian or non-Christian? Because he says if you're non-Christian, he will beat you. You what? You speak louder, Baba. What's